Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
Welcome back, everyone. We are your hosts. My name's Scott. My co-host is Dr. J. We're going to do something a little bit different this week. Jason, what are we thinking?
Well, we've been doing this for almost 2 years, Scott, and we have never had you as a guest, our host, to tell us a little bit about you. I think it would be a great idea to find out a little bit more about what you do. It bleeds out a little as we talk to people, but I want to find out more about you. And yes, I know you. I'm your dad, yada, yada, yada. Tell me just a little bit how, I mean, maybe in a few words, what is it that you do?
Boiled down simply, I am a financier. I help put together syndications around the country. I do a lot of hard money and I run a mortgage brokerage.
How did you get from Logan, Utah to this?
Uh, it was quite a trail. So I went down to Brigham Young University and graduated in marketing. No, I have not used that degree once since then. I ran two restaurants for a while, and then I had a friend of mine come to me and say, "Hey, I got this guy I think you'd really connect with. Talk to him." So on a whim, I drove down to Salt Lake and connected with my now mentor. His name's Randy, and he sat down and talked to me for 5 minutes, said, "Hey, I want you to run my loan company. Come run it." So I accepted the offer right away, and it's just completely blossomed since then. About 6 months into that, I figured out how to do hard money, which is just a creative short-term loan for real estate. Uh, I have since been able to grow that till now we own and run a fund that's a little bit over $100 million.
And over the course of your career so far, what would you say the amount that you've helped fund?
With what we're tracking to do this month, I would say we're probably close to 200 million. That by the end of the year, we'll probably be closer to 300 million.
That's really cool. What was it about this first meeting that caused you to quickly make a shift in your life and decide to go that direction?
Well, one of the rules that I live by is you need to know the opportunity you want before it presents itself so that when it does, you don't spend time wasting when you want to take it. I knew all along that I wanted to do something in real estate. I just didn't know what. I knew that I really enjoyed numbers. I really enjoyed math. And I knew also that I was very, very good at sales. And so, not to mention that I just had always wanted to do something in the real estate space. So, after some time, well, we'll skip ahead. Once I ran into Randy, he kind of in that 5 minutes he walked me through what his loan company looked like and what he was kind of looking for. And I knew right away that it was a perfect fit. And so I kind of jumped in the deep end, knowing that, hey, I want this guy as a mentor, and two, this matches up for the goals as I have them now.
So you mentioned mentor. Let's talk a little bit about that. What can you say to entrepreneurs and other people that want to invest in real estate or whatever it is in their life? What would you say to them as the value of a mentor, or what kind of advice would you give to them?
Um, well, first, I think we need to define mentor. I think for the majority of the population, they have what a mentor is and should be incorrect. Most people think a mentor is someone that's supposed to hold your hand, walk you through it, teach you their process, and you essentially get an immense amount of value for no value on your part. You're not giving much value. Even if you work for free, you're not giving much value. I think of a mentor as someone who is willing to answer questions openly and honestly. And that is exactly what Randy does to me. Randy doesn't come to me and says, "Hey, do this, do that, make sure you go do this." He lets me flounder like a fish in a puddle. And then once I can't figure out one particular question, I'll go ask him and he'll be like, "Oh, you do X, Y, and Z." And then all of a sudden it shortchanges that process where I'm not banging my head against the wall. So my definition of a mentor, again, is just someone who will answer your questions. Someone who will sit there and take your phone call, and when you can't figure something out, they will answer. You're not looking for someone to take your hand and guide you like a teacher. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it is. There's not many people like that. Most of the time, they want something from you. What is it about Randy that you think is unique that he served such a good role as a mentor for you?
Um, I'm not so sure that there's anything unique in our relationship because what he wanted to from me was I brought in business for him. I gave him value, and that's why he was answering my question. But what makes him unique in the space is before 2008, he built the largest loan company in the Western United States. Um, Even now, he's one of the largest developers and financiers in the state of Utah. And so when I've jumped in and learned, I'm not only learning from him as he is the best in this situation, but I'm brushing against codes and talking to people who Randy's best friend, for example, Rich, he's the one that built all the hotels over in Park City, and we finance most of what he does. The guy's got something like $7 billion of debt just to him personally. So what makes him unique? He's been to where I want to go, and he's got kind of a similar track to what I was hoping to do.
I know over your lifetime you've dabbled in several different things. What was it about real estate that was such a draw for you? You said earlier this is something you wanted to do your whole life. You knew you wanted to be in real estate. Why? Where did that idea come from?
It came from you. I mean, you never missed a ball game of mine. You might have shown up late, like when I hit that home, my first high school home run, you were late to that game, but you're still there. And so from my perspective, when I was really young, is that was the vehicle that made it so we could have time. All along, I'm not after the money, I'm after control. I'm after control of my life, I'm after control of my time. And that was what I saw was the conduit. Not to mention when I went on my mission, every single senior couple, except for my mission president, had a huge real estate portfolio and made a majority of their wealth in real estate. And so coming home, I was like, that's the only route I can go.
Okay, so you come home, you went and did summer sales, which you did phenomenal with, refined some of your skills as a salesperson. Um, how did you start into real estate? What got you going?
The first one, I approached my uncle, Trevor, and said, "Hey, I want to buy a duplex. I want to get my foot in the door. Would you just help me identify my first good property?" At the same time, you had told me that I need to go kick the bricks on about 100 different properties. So I was already in the process of doing that. And when Uncle Trevor came to us and was like, "Hey, this is one I'm going to buy if you don't," then I jumped all over it. I pulled Carter into it so I'd have enough cash to produce to cover expenses and stuff. I was newly married at the time, and we just jumped headlong into it and was like, "Okay, trust experience here. If he knows it's a good deal, then let's make it happen." So that
So
was kind of
tell me
my
a little bit about
action.
this idea that I don't know if it was mean, if it was good or whatever, but I said you need to go walk some properties. You need to know what a good deal is and what isn't a good deal. So obviously, your first deal that you did, you were quite fortunate being able to get some advice from someone who'd been in this space for multiple decades. And if I'm not mistaken, that deal has turned out to be pretty good for you. Why, tell me about your experience in walking these properties to learn about what is a good deal and what's not a good deal?
Well, um, like I said, I was already in the process of doing a lot of that because I still remember the first triplex I ever kicked. It was the first place that I went. I looked it up online I found a way into the MLS so I could start looking at listings. And I called you about it because I was excited, and you were like, go walk it, go kick the bricks. And I believe I even called you at the time when I was doing it, but it turned out to be a meth house that the realtor was trying to make the claim that it just needed a little bit of love. So you walk in, there's no floors, there's no walling, the place smells terrible. It looks like that place is condemned. And so my first experience was I almost got taken if I would have just trusted the listing agent on this. And so I from there I went forward, and probably around the time I bought that duplex up in Pocatello, I had run numbers even on places I knew didn't work, but I had put the numbers into my Excel sheet. I had just gone through the process probably a good 50 or 100 times. And I had kicked the bricks on probably another 50 different properties by the time we purchased that one.
And so, if I'm not mistaken, the individual that introduced you to Randy kind of came through this process, right? You were out talking to realtors, you're finding places to walk through, basically. Um, from I don't know how far north you went or how far south, but you would travel quite a distance to look at a potential deal, right?
Mhm. Yeah, so my introduction to Randy wasn't that way. It came from a high school friend who I connected as he was doing something similar to what I was doing. And he was like, and he worked at a property management company at the time, was like, hey, he is our biggest client. Come talk to him. But you're right. I traveled all over the place. I think I went as far south as Spanish Fork and as far north as Logan, Tremont. I went all over the place kicking and looking.
And going on further with some of the things you've done, how have you found your deals? I mean, what have you been willing to do to find deals? And we're talking about individual, not. We'll talk more about loans and originating loans and that kind of stuff in a minute. But I'm talking about deals that you personally were interested in.
So, um, the way that I've done everything. I've looked online. I've made friends with realtors who sent me stuff. Probably some of the best deals we found we did through wholesaling, where we just cold call people, say, "Hey, I'm a student. I'm just looking to pick up another property or in the area. Could we you thinking about selling? Like, what are you thinking here?" And that was the way we picked up our second property and our first wholesale as well.
So you were willing to cold call, and there's a lot of people that will not do that. They're so scared of that. They may try to outsell shit up. However, just talk a minute about the experience or the I don't not the experience, but the wisdom it gave you like
For
going through
sure.
that process.
Well, I remember that I come from a background of sales. So the actual process itself was not all that difficult. It was very, very similar. You just get anxiety before the phone call. What if they're mean? All of that. Um, but most people won't. I've learned through that process that most people won't do the small things that will give them the greatest benefit. Um, I laugh
So give me some
because
examples. Give me some examples of some small things.
Well, just with what we're talking about, Carter and I probably called two or 300 people before we found that first deal. That first deal, we picked up a fourplex that was really worth about 350 for 200 grand. We held on to it. That thing's probably worth 450, 480 right now. And it's been the best unit that we've picked up. Another example in the same process is that we found this guy. We had this duplex that could have been converted into a triplex. We tried and tried and tried. He was the first one to sign a contract. We fell out of contract. We followed back up 2 years later, which is again another small thing that a simple follow-up. Someone was interested, just staying in touch every so often to see what they're doing. And he eventually sold it to us, and we just did a quick flip on a quick wholesale. I know the buyer from us was thrilled. They made like 150 off of us, but at the time, I believe we made $70,000 on that. And I think our total time for something on that was 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours a piece. So call it 10 hours. That's a pretty good return, hourly return.
So you're a brand new father, 4.5 months, soon be 5 months into it. What has changed in your life and in your, professionally and personally? What's this cause? What kind of changes has there been?
Just becoming a father, or are you talking in just like with the business?
Uh, Everything really. I mean, how has becoming a father affected your business, and what what kind of lessons have you learned from that maybe you could share with our listeners?
Um, well, first it reinforced my idea at the beginning that this was the route I wanted to go because again, I wanted control of my time. I wanted to be able to go to ball games or hold my little one or whatever it was. And that's exactly what I'm able to do. I can work from home if needed. Now, the other day, my mother uh, came to hold Snugs for a little while, and I was here the whole day. I got to hear her first laugh. There's just something that's priceless about those things. So it definitely reinforced my vision of, hey, I want to do this so that I can do everything else. I want to have that freedom and control so I can do everything else. Past that is, uh, it's made me realize, at least from the business aspect, is how much more I still need to automate. I have a pretty automatic business as it stands now, but there's been several ways that I've seen where it's like, okay, I need to start looking for someone to take on my calendar and to filter some of these emails and to process simply because one, I can, and two, I'm still after more control of that time. So if I do take a trip down to the park or around the block or something, if something comes up, that deal still will close because someone's got a tab on it.
So I guess what you're leaning towards is one of the things we talk about in our on this podcast quite often is team. And so you're starting to think that I need a team to, and maybe you say automate. Most people would think, at least I do, when you say automate, I think a machine doing it, right? That
Mhm.
that's automation to me, not necessarily a team member it's being downloaded to them and say, here, run with this. This is your responsibility. Do you have much of a team right now?
I do. I have a little bit of a team. I mean, I've got my little brother who I can pass stuff off to. I've got a processor. We've got a VA behind the scenes. Although we need to expand that a little bit further. We need to um, start listing out processes so someone else can pick up the slack so we can focus our time on things that will generate a bigger return.
The highest return, yeah. I know you fool around a little bit in other investments such as options and different things. You continue to do that kind of stuff on the side, or have you
Hmm?
left that all behind and only doing these loans?
Um, I still do it. Yeah, I've got my option account. I was just looking at it before. I was killing it at the beginning of the year, and then I had the market turn against me. So working on it.
And tell me a little bit, how is it that you got into that and etc.
So around the same time that I had decided that I wanted to go do real estate, I was playing ball in the morning, and there's one guy who comes every morning, and I started talking to him, and his schedule was play basketball, head to the club, the country club, work out, play golf. play some tennis, go pick up the kids from school, play with them until they go to bed. And I started asking him, I was like, how do you do that? Like, do you just have a bunch of real estate that's super passive? And he's like, oh, no, no, no. Like, I just keep track of my options account. And so come to find out, he was only spending an hour, maybe 2 hours a week, and he could do it anywhere in the world where he just had to follow up with his account, making sure things were performing. He was just following his process. And he started walking me through numbers, and I developed this friendship with him and started asking him questions, and he opened me up to how he had learned. And I figured that while it's not something where I'm as interested as say real estate, it was something where I do have further control of my time. Hour a week's pretty good to live the kind of lifestyle that he was living. And
Yeah, no
so
kidding.
ever since then, I don't have a big account. It's only like 20, 30 grand, but every year I generate somewhere between a 20 and 30% return on it. So,
Again, it was a mentor, kind of sort of, right? I mean, he acted as a mentor to you. You still have in touch with him. I don't know whether you still talk to him or not.
um, I haven't talked. I talk to Chad every now and again. I'll text him maybe once a year, just see how he's doing, check in. I see him on cruises all the time. That's kind of his thing to do is they'll go on a 2 month cruise, and he'll check his option account probably once a week somewhere in the middle of nowhere. But at this point, he did a wonderful job at teaching me where to go and where to ask questions and how to learn. He is very similar to Randy of figure it out yourself. Here's the material, figure it out. And so that I have just gotten to a point where I don't have, I maybe have one question a year on one particular position where it's like, what should I do here that I might need another opinion on? But I probably should reach out and talk to him a little bit more.
Well, what would you say? I mean, there's some similarities between the two, and that they've given you information here, go try it, and then they've waited and watched whether you will sink or swim, basically, right?
Mm.
Whether you'll learn and do, and then when you do perform, then they're willing to answer further questions and move along. That's kind of cool. So I want to know for a minute, what would be um, if you were talking to someone that's younger, trying to decide what they want to do, where would you point them as far as like books to read or something that, information to help them figure things out?
Um, I we hear it a lot on this podcast, but I would really say Rich Dad Poor Dad is a great one to start. In conjunction with The Richest Man in Babylon. Those two in particular seem to go such hand in hand. They're such an easy read that you can reference back and forth throughout a whole career. So I'd say start with that and then follow it up with Think and Grow Rich. And then from there, once you have a foundation, that should give you a little bit of an idea of, hey, um, basically give you an idea on where you should go. And at that point, then you can get more specific. If you like the finance realm and things like that, then I'd say becoming your own banker would be another one. Or if you're like, no, I want to go more of a sales route, then the 10X by Grant Cardone's a good one. So it after that, I would say it allows you to open up and explore a path a little bit better. Your chosen path, I should say.
See. Okay. So Think and Go, or Rich Dad Poor Dad, Richest Man in Babylon, um, Think and Grow Rich, and anything else that's. I mean, I like for the fact that I like because I do so much with the infinite banking concepts. Did you say becoming your own banker? Let's talk a little bit about that. Would on a scale from 1 to 5, what would you say is your familiarity with the infinite banking concept?
Um, I would say I don't have as good of a grasp as you, but I would say I'm well further along than most. So let's say a 4.
Okay, what is it that you like about that concept so much? What is appealing to you?
Control. It's kind of a common theme in my life, and my wife often laughs at me, but that's literally all I want is I want control. I want control of when I want my money. I want control on what to do with it. I want control where I don't have someone sit there and question me and be like, "You can't do that. You can't do that. That's a stupid reason." I hate that. So that's my number one reason.
So if in the event someone wanted to motivate you, would they say you can't do that, and then you'd do it simply to prove them wrong?
Potentially, it definitely kicks me myself into gear. Um, but if it's a bad deal, I'm still not going to do it.
That's one thing as I noticed about you, Scott, is that you will cut to the bone real fast on some of the deals. I hear, I overhear you talking about stuff, and you'll just say, "I'm not doing that," and you're pretty adamant, and I'm not doing that. I'm out. I've heard you be on the phone and say, "You know what? I'm out on this deal." How have you developed that keen sense of what's good and what's not good, or what drives that?
Um, I developed that keen sense just from as many deals that I've done and been around. You have to be around experts who have been in the space longer than I have. There's one person that comes to mind in particular that is just very dry and ruthless. Uh, that I've learned quite a bit from. He sometimes grades me the wrong way, but he's very good at getting down to business and just being, "Hey, this is what I need to make it work. What is it that you have? Oh, you don't have what I need, then I'm not wasting my time. I got three other deals I'm going to work on." And so just that process over and over and over again, you pick up and know, okay, this is what makes a good deal, or this is how I have to have this done in order to make this work. In real estate, in the loan space, in real estate, it really comes down to three factors. What's the value, and how do I determine that? What's my loan amount, or what's the loan to value? And what position am I in? Those are your three risk factors. So if I can solve those, if I could get a 1% loan to value every single time, I would do that deal every day of the week. But it's that balance between the borrower and the lender where the borrower wants as high as leverage as possible and I want as low as leverage as possible. So there's that happy medium. So when someone brings a deal that meets my specifications and they tell me that they need a loan to value of 95%, it's like, "You got other collateral?" "No, I'm out." Like, it's as simple as that because I'm solving for that risk.
And I had a thought here, and it's not formulating right. Um, okay, how often does a deal of a lifetime come along? I mean, is it truly that thing? Is it only one deal in a lifetime, or what would you say a deal of a lifetime comes along? How often?
Oh, I would say it's once a week if you've got the network. Easy, if not every other day. I mean, I've had multiple deals where I go zero to multi six figures. I had one just the other day. It just appeared out of nowhere. You just have to know how to recognize it, to have the skill to be able to execute it, and be able to have the liquidity to be able to acquire it.
I love that because I have always felt the same way that deal of a lifetime comes along, every day. It's just a matter of can do you recognize it and can you jump on it? Um, do you feel like that? I mean, what would you say to someone that wanted to do similar to what you're doing? Where would you send them? What would you tell them to do? Same thing you have done, or what would you say are a couple of steps?
If they wanted to do a loan, sorry.
Just kind of do similar to what you're doing. If they wanted to get into real estate, or what would you tell them to do?
I would first look at your strengths and weaknesses, see what you're good at, And then from there, go find a mentor. Go find someone that'll answer your questions. And if you have to give, let's say you decide to be an agent, if you have to give up 50% of your commission so you can learn from the best in the state, why wouldn't you do it? Go learn from them for 2 years. You have to provide as much value, if not more value, so that they answer your questions. And then once that relationship's developed, you can switch brokerages or open your own and still be able to team up and ask them questions. I mean, that's how it is with Randy. At the beginning, I all I was doing, he was taking 35-40% of every loan I brought to the table. And I didn't bring anywhere near as many as he did, but over a course I learned and I grew, and then I brought in other contacts and hard money and helped him complete a couple of his deals, and now I just barely helped him close one of the largest deals that he's done or going to do.
Again, I want to talk a little bit about you. You mentioned network. If you have the network, then the deal comes along. What have you found is probably the biggest key or the secret sauce, if you will, to growing your network?
Um, Secret sauce to growing a network. Just look to provide value. I think that is so often overlooked, and like be anxiously engaged in looking to provide value. I see a lot of people just think that value to I get a lot of requests all the time for me to mentor other people, and they're like, I'll work for you for free, I'll do whatever it is, or hire me, please. It's like that's no value to me. What is valuable to me is go find me a hard money deal that I can fund. Yeah, I'll pay you. I'll pay you to do that. I'll give you you can make whatever you want on that as long as you tack it on top. And so it's the same thing when growing a network. A lot of people will just sit and think, what's the easiest thing that I can provide, not what's truly valuable to this other person, and that's why they don't get very far.
That's interesting. I know usually at the end of all our podcast interviews, we'll turn off the recorder and it's officially over. And often you'll say, how can we make your life easier or simpler? I'm not positive. I think you say simpler. Is that what you usually say? But truly,
It's
it's interesting that the variety of people that we've had on the show over the last 2 years. There's been some fairly well known people and some not so well known, and there's been some people that have been very very well off. And it seems like they're always taken back by that question: what can we do to make your life simpler or easier, right? And it's been interesting, some of the responses we get. They're first they're like, and it takes them a minute to answer. But I think that's a really good philosophy to be telling people, leading us, what can we do for you? We're not looking for anything in return, just what can we do for you? So that's really good advice. We're kind of starting to come to the end of our time here, Scott. What's some last words that you feel like that, let's say you're going to talk to Snugs a minute and you wanted to leave something and say, okay, here's some advice from Dad. Speak to that for just a minute.
um I I would say, Snugs, I got three pieces of advice for you. One, I want you to do whatever that makes you happy in life. Go after no matter what career it is, I does what school it is. It doesn't matter to me. Life is too short not to be happy and not to really chase your dreams. The second thing is make sure that you invest no matter what career you take. If you're an investor first and then have your career second, you'll be set up for life. And then the last thing is remember how much value you are, not just to me, but to yourself, your Heavenly Father, and the world. If you'll keep those three things in mind, um, you'll be able to achieve far more in this life than anyone, all your friends, hopefully me, or the majority of the population would.
It's awesome. Thank you, Scott. I want you to know how proud of you I am. I sit back and all the time and I tell I tell your mom that I want to be more like Scott when I grow up. You're a good guy. You've always been very competitive and always, I remember when we were very young, I guess I should have noticed this control thing then. However, when the game was on the line, whether that was in the state tournament or whatever, you wanted the ball. You wanted to have the ball in your hands. You wanted to be in control of that and be able to affect the outcome, and that's served you well. And I'm proud of you for that. Thank you so much for taking this time and just simply having a heart to heart about how life's gone for you and some of your secrets to success and how you are in the throes of amassing your wealth and also enjoying it, right? That's what this podcast is all about, is accumulating, enjoying, and passing on your wealth, which you're doing a great job of. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's different sitting on the other side of things. So, well, guys, thanks for tuning in. If you want to connect with Jason or I, check the show notes down below. And if you like the episode, leave us a 5-star review. Always remember that mastering your millions starts with your mind and your team. Make sure they are the best. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.